Gridiron Grinder! Hut hut hike!
All right, party people, it's Gridiron Grinder time. I'm Ryan. With me, as always, is my buddy James. Just a couple of dudes hanging out, talking about what's going on in the NFL each week. This is episode 161 of Gridiron Grinder. And for tonight, we're going to kick things off with Name That Stadium. After that, we're going to cover the news from this past week. Then we're going to give you our Week 5 power rankings and game picks. And last but not least, we'll close things off with our question of the week. And so, yeah, man, with all that being said, how's it going tonight there, James?
It's going good. How's it going with you?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Getting a little, midweek action here again. We've been flexible with the schedule. I appreciate that. And yeah, nice to get a jump on it, man.
Yeah, I'll get to talk about Thursday night before Thursday night, even though the game this week sucks on Thursday.
Oh, yeah. Well, I still don't have Prime. And so it means nothing to me, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Uh,
I have Prime and I will not be even bothering with it tomorrow.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. Well, hey, man, why don't you take that ball and run with it? Do some name that stadium for us.
All right, this is part of the show where, as you can see, I'm traveling around going to different stadiums that host NFL games. First person to guess it right gets an extra special shout out. Bookmark it. You can watch it over and over with your friends. Show them how smart you are. Hell, somebody guesses and gets it wrong, we'll give you a shout out for fucking participating. Come on, people. We haven't had any takers in it's been a minute. But last week we did it on Wednesday, so I was able to go to the Lambeau for the Thursday night game with the Lions at Green Bay, and so yeah, and just guess where I am this week. It should be an obvious one if you know NFL stadiums or stadiums that host NFL games. Emphasis on
Yeah.
host NFL games.
Yeah, a little teaser there, little hint for you. Okay. Well, yeah. Hey, we didn't get any takers last week. Maybe we will this week, but thankfully we did get a taker uh, on the comments asking us a question, and so we're going to save that for a question of the week later on in the show. But why don't we move over and do our recap of the past week here, James? And so. Um, Let's see. We've been saving the surprise games of the week for the end, right?
Yeah,
The end of the
there's
news.
not all that much real news this week from what I saw.
Okay. Well, all
So
right. Yeah. So I guess I'll save a couple of them since they relate to the games. I'll save those for the end when we do our surprise games. But um, yeah. And so listen, we had a slew of injuries, just like we've been having every week. So Matthew Judon, the edge rusher for the Patriots, he tore his biceps. He's going to be out for 2 months.
hmm
Jamal Adams, safety for Seattle, he left early in that game with a concussion. And, a lot of people making this a big deal because he got knocked out last year in week 1. And, he was a big high priced safety that he just hasn't been on the field much nowadays. And then I think even with that one, he was not on the sidelines, maybe it was in the tunnel yelling at the medical staff, trying to stay on the field, but they wouldn't clear him because he was in the concussion protocol. And I don't know, I did hear something just a minute before the show that he has apologized for that behavior, but I don't know a whole lot about it. So,
yeah,
uh,
so like apparently the NFL is mulling disciplinary action towards him, but when he went into the medical tent and when he came out, he was yelling at one of the independent neurotrauma consultants while being held back by the athletic trainer and two members of security staff.
okay. Yeah,
And
that's
so it
not
was
good.
right on the sideline, right in public view. And then he did apologize. He took to what's his Twitter, said, first and foremost, I want to apologize to the OG. You did everything right when you realized I was concussed. I apologize for any negative energy. Thankful for your patience, knowing I wasn't myself in that moment. You're a real one, and you serve a great purpose that benefits the NFL and so many players. Prioritizing players' health is essential. Much respect to you. So yeah,
Yeah,
he's taking accountability for it. I think, I honestly think, honest if the NFL would be well within their rights to discipline him, and I think they should. And the reason why I think they should discipline him is because if they don't, the message is going to be, well, I can blow up at them and then apologize later and be fine. Because with discipline, one of the things, if a player fights discipline, they look at previous similar conduct and the discipline for that.
No,
And
I
so,
got you. Yeah, but I guess let me ask you because normally I'm okay with a lot of the discipline because I think some players take things to an extreme where the league has to step in and I usually get upset when I see the NFLPA sort of like blindly defend some of these players, if you will. But I guess in this one, man, I'm just wondering because it's a concussion. Like, can you make the case that he legitimately is just not all there mentally in that? And so it's like he's not his normal self. And so, it's like, it's almost like you're holding something against him that's not his fault because he was hurt in the game and that's why he's now behaving that way. I don't know. It may be a slippery slope there, but I hear
it
what you're
can be a,
saying, man.
it can be a slippery slope, but then you have then you could bring that defense into almost anything that happens in
Oh, I
the
got
game, and
angry because I
anything you're
broke my leg.
disciplined.
Well, yeah, but that's
Yeah,
not
I
a
got
brain thing. A concussion's
right.
brain
No,
related.
but like for instance, punching an official. Oh, I must have had a head injury at the time. I wasn't
Oh
myself.
yeah, you could come back and be like, oh,
Yeah,
well,
after
somewhere
the
in the
fact,
game I must have been concussed and they just didn't
exactly,
notice it.
exactly,
Oh,
and
Antonio Brown back in the league. Yes. No, no.
yeah,
All
I
right.
mean it's a slippery slope determining what caused it. The point is as an NFL player, you should be held to that higher standard, and concussed or not, you should not be yelling at the independent consultant that is there 100% for your safety. Period.
I got you. All right. I'm good with that. So next up here we got Justin Herbert. He has fractured a finger on his non-throwing hand.
Hmm.
Says he's going to continue to play regardless. And so I think
Yeah.
that's positive. It's not the end of the world, but it could come into play, if he's being sacked and he's got to protect the ball or whatever, but otherwise throwing wise he should be okay.
Yeah, like he fractured it early in the game, and I didn't see any. I think it was first half that it happened, and I did maybe early second half, but I didn't. I was because I'm in the LA area. That was the um, CBS game, I believe, and I didn't see any ill effects from the finger the rest of the game. So I think it's a non-issue.
Okay. Well, that's good. And then this guy, I know you and I both like him. It's unfortunate. Tre'Davious White, the cornerback for Buffalo,
Mhm.
tore his Achilles. He's going to be out for the rest of the year, is what it looks like.
Yeah.
They're usually pretty stacked in the secondary, but he's a big name guy. I'm sure they're going to miss him.
Speaking of Achilles injuries, did you hear? It was, I think it was earlier this week. It might have been late last week. At some point, Aaron Rodgers went on the Pat McAfee show and was talking about how he thinks he can come back from his Achilles injury before the end of the season.
It would be pretty aggressive, I'll tell you that. But I don't, here's the thing, I don't know to what like severity his injury was. And I've heard of people, non-athletes, so it's a whole different story. But I've heard of them recovering within a couple months. But you got to remember, they're also not like putting the same kind of strain on that. And so I'm sure
Mhm.
that like the recovery and everything's a different kind of path for a regular Joe than it is for a football player.
Yeah, so it was like his rehab. So from what I understood, it was completely torn,
Okay.
and he did a different kind of repair surgery. I don't know all the facts about it. I'm not a doctor. But he on the Pat McAfee show, he was saying that he's well ahead of normal protocols, and he believes he can come back before the end of the season from it.
So
And
he's hoping that they'll keep the ship afloat and he can make a playoff run.
yeah, and like the quote that stuck out was the common practice is about 6 weeks in a walking boot, and I was in a shoe in 13 days.
Really? Yeah, I would just, I'm not a Rodgers fan, but I would hate to see him rush it and then it turn
Hmm.
into a more permanent thing that he's got to deal with after his playing days are done. Because, that's like a sad thing that some of the players go through. They have these permanent injuries and,
Yeah.
even though I don't like the guy, I don't want to see anybody have to face that. And I could see his incentive because he knows the clock's ticking to get another ring and whatever, but I just hope he's careful. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I hope he's careful. I hope he doesn't rush it. It'd be freaking phenomenal if he were able to come back this year Achilles tear, because it's very not common
Yeah,
for that quick. Like it's from everything I've seen, it's minimum of a year,
yeah.
10 months to a year.
Well,
So we'll
yeah, and it's
see.
interesting because, yeah, like flipping it the other way, with Nick Chubb in that ACL. So he had surgery. They're saying he's going to require a second surgery. They've already announced that. Um, so they're saying he
I thought Chubb
may.
was the MCL he tore, and then during the MCL surgery, they found an ACL issue, and he'll need a second surgery.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, because I heard for him that they're saying he may be able to play at some point next year, but it's like such a serious injury and recovery that it's not like some of these other guys that have these ACLs where they're back right at the start of the next season. They're saying
Hmm.
this could be something that goes into late next year before he hits the field again. And so, I think that's the key is just that we've kind of gotten spoiled a little bit with how quick some of these guys have recovered, but the reality is some of them are still very severe and take a very
Hmm.
long time to come back from.
Well, the example, and I know this is not a basketball show, so um, I'll just comment on Kevin Durant. In the finals, one year, Kevin Durant tore his Achilles, and then it was a full year plus
Okay,
before he was back to NBA action.
gotcha. Yeah, that's a long
So,
time. Yeah.
and that was just like 3 or 4 years ago, maybe. It
Okay.
was like right before the pandemic or right after. It might have been
Conveniently right
21.
before, so he just took that extra year off.
Yeah, it might have been 2021
Okay.
that he tore it. I can look it up, but it was really
Yeah, we don't need those details, James. It's basketball.
well. I'm a stickler for details.
I gotcha. I gotcha.
It was right before. It was 2019 that he
Okay.
tore it, and then he tore it in the summer of 2019, and he didn't play again. And he played in 2021.
Okay.
I'm a stickler for details, so I
Yeah. I think it's a convenient COVID opt-out year. Just blaming the injury, but that's okay. Um,
no, because the long story short, the Brooklyn Nets had a chance in the bubble to make it through the playoffs, and I don't remember exactly where they were or what, but they they had a decent chance and didn't do anything because they didn't have him basically.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So, in other injury news, I think this is the last one I picked up on the injury front. I don't even have the details on this. I just totally missed it. But I saw that the Patriots have traded for J.C.
Hmm.
Jackson because rookie cornerback Christian Gonzalez could be out for the year. And so I don't know what happened with him, what his injury was. But J.C. Jackson obviously has some familiarity with the team. And I don't think that they had to give a whole lot to get him, but I don't have all the details. I want to say it was like a swap of late round picks plus the player. But maybe you saw some of that and you can shed
Yeah,
some light on it.
okay. So Gonzalez dislocated his shoulder and has a torn labrum, which will likely keep him out the rest of the season. That was the injury.
Okay.
I remember seeing it, and it didn't look. It was kind of weird how it looked. So the trade for J.C. Jackson, the Patriots are sending 2025 6th-round pick to the Chargers, who send Jackson and a 2025 7th-round pick to the Patriots. So it's not. It's
nothing. It's not even a pick this
nothing.
next year.
Yeah, it's nothing. But the point of it is J.C. Jackson's been a huge disappointment in
LA.
with the Chargers. Like he hasn't been anything. Like he was. I think they
really
were just
freaking good for the Patriots.
Yeah, and they were looking to trade him. I'm positive of that because of the fact that, like they benched him or didn't even have him active this past week.
Okay. Well then, yeah, good for everybody. You get him out of there, and the Patriots, I'm sure, will welcome him back with open arms. And it's like a classic Belichick move. He'll probably go back to being a freaking stud, and they need it because they got fucking nothing on offense. So they need all the help on defense they can get.
Nothing on offense, and they have almost nothing on defense. So
yeah, they're usually a lot better on defense, but Dallas embarrassed them a little bit last week. So, okay, a few more things on the news here. So, related to trades there, James, I don't have anything super tangible here, except I heard Carolina is in the market for a starting wide receiver, and they've been calling teams trying to get a clear-cut wide receiver one for Bryce Young to throw to. And so I don't know what'll work out there, what they'll get. Maybe they're, nipping at the Justin Jefferson rumors of Minnesota maybe moving him. In any event, I think it's a smart thing for them to do to help develop their young quarterback because we know Thielen is not a one, and neither is DJ Chark or any of the other guys they got there. And so, I like the attempt.
Yeah, so I'm it is looking like they're looking for a wide receiver. Because they drafted what's his face, Mingo, who hasn't come up at all. But the Scott Fitterer said he wanted to be in on every deal or something like that, and possibly possibly looking to trade for Xavier Woods.
Okay.
So I just the rumor mill. We'll see what comes about it, but
yeah,
they need to do something. That offense is anemic. When you see Bryce Young play, he looks like he has the talent. It's just he has nobody really to throw it to.
I got you. Yeah, that's not good. Not the way you want to bring along your rookie quarterback. So,
but it's also looking like Carolina messed up with the number 1 pick by drafting Bryce Young. How C.J. Stroud's playing.
No doubt, man. C.J. Stroud is he's really looking good. And so, I know a few weeks ago we talked about him and Richardson. And I was talking about how I like the flash of Richardson because the way he runs, and it's very like Lamar-esque in some ways. But Stroud, I think, and I think that's the difference is most people expected Stroud to be more pro ready and Richardson to be more of a developmental project. But man, I don't know that anybody expected Stroud to be this pro ready. He's been really sharp so far. And I love that connection he's got with Nico Collins, man. I thought Nico Collins was going to be on the map last year, and it took, a year for him to get here, but he's playing great football
Hmm.
now, man.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like some people it just takes a year or 2 years to get into the swing at the NFL, but like some people it just clicks, and
Yeah,
it's really clicking for Stroud. Like he's like, has he thrown an interception yet?
I don't think so, no. And that's with a really banged up offensive line, man.
Hmm.
They've got like two or three of their starters out, man.
Yeah, yeah. He's fourth on the list for passing yards.
Okay.
He has in he's averaging 303 yards per game passing.
Yeah, as a rookie
As a rookie,
with no interceptions.
he has 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions,
Yeah.
and 62 or 63%. Yeah, 62.3% completion percentage.
It's pretty sweet, man. Pretty sweet.
Hmm.
I'm digging it, dude. I'm digging it. All right, so let me give you the last couple things I got on the news here. I saw Bradley Roby has signed with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's going to add some depth to their secondary. I don't think that's related to any kind of injuries, them just wanting to beef things up. Then we've got a couple players released this past week. So Chandler Jones was released by the Raiders. We talked about it last week. He had some off the field stuff going on, sounded like
Hmm.
some mental health stuff. And related to all of that comes now the team releasing him because of his behavior and like some violations of some kind of like, domestic orders or restraining orders or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So not the same, but also a release is the edge rusher Randy Gregory from the Denver Broncos.
Hmm.
They just like I don't know, like signed him to like a freaking $70 million contract like a year ago, and so kind of a shock that they're getting rid of him. But at the same time, it is a new regime, and he's just not fitting in with what they're doing, and so he's gone. He's a guy that I don't know, man. I want to say he's had some off the field stuff too in the past, but either way, both those
Yeah,
guys are.
he was like the reason why he went to Denver because he had agreed to sign with Dallas, but they put a clause in the contract that could void it based on certain um, conduct by him, and Denver didn't, and that's why he signed with Denver instead. I
Gotcha.
remember the story about it, but um, I can't remember what his legal issues or what was going on with him. I can't remember. Like I tried
Okay.
to do a quick search and it's not.
Nothing's coming up. Okay. That's okay. Either way,
16
both those
games.
guys.
He was through 2017 to 2019. He was suspended 16 games.
Yeah, so he had some shit going on. I don't remember exactly what it was, but either
Substance
way.
abuse and marijuana.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't know how the marijuana thing works anymore, but it's legal in so many states now, but still, you break the rule when it is a rule, that's a problem. And so, um, yeah, so I mean, these are guys that are bigger name edge rushers, now free agents sitting out there. I would just be cautious for any team looking at
Mhm.
bringing them in because you're bringing in bad behavior into your locker room. And so, you got to be smart about how you navigate that with these guys. So,
Yeah, you
yeah,
got smart with that. I agree.
yeah. Then my last couple things here is we've got Jonathan Taylor. He's going to be returning to practice, or was supposed to return to practice rather today for Indy. He's coming off a pup, so that's good, man. Give those guys a boost. Give Richardson some help. And they've already been surprising people on offense, so this could
Hmm.
be even better for them. And then I saw Jamison Williams along with a couple other players that were involved with some of those gambling related suspensions. They have been reinstated early because the NFL revised their gambling policy. And I think you might know a thing or two more about that than I do here, James.
Yeah, like so there were a couple things they did. They changed it to, and I have to pull it up because I forgot that it didn't happen before last week. It happened um like right after. But uh let me pull it up real quick
Sure.
because it was okay. So they changed. First change was the biggest change. They changed the punishment for players who gamble on non-NFL games at the facility from 6 games to 2 games.
Okay,
And
so he had six, he missed four, and now they're saying he only should have missed two.
so, so they reduced those 3 players that were suspended with Jamison Williams. They reduced it from 6 to 4,
But it's two for people going forward.
but it's 2 for people going forward. See, but they didn't have to reduce it for them because that was the old
That was the
policy.
policy at the time. I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
All
and then it
right.
was like, so if you
I just want like a 2 game credit for him if he gets in trouble again. That's all I'm saying.
oh I give you that. And then I'm looking for like the other stuff because like they changed it to like if you bet on league games, it's a minimum of, I want to say it's 2 years.
Oh yeah, I think I saw that. Yeah. Yeah, so it's like still do not bet on the NFL. You're an idiot if you do that.
Yeah. So for betting um at the facility, they changed it to first time offense is 2 games, second time is 6, third time is a full year.
Okay.
Um I'm I'm just not finding it. Like why the hell? Let me try something else.
Sure.
Because this is weird that I can't find the whole thing on it, and I had it. Okay, so NFL related bets from team facilities will now be punishable with at least a year suspension on the first violation, 2 year suspension for bets made on a player's own team.
Okay, yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, you can't
And
do
then
that, man. You can't be betting on your own games. That's not
yeah,
cool.
and then there was something I remember where they talked about a lifetime ban.
Okay.
But I'm not finding it. There was some talk about the possibility of a lifetime ban. But just give me 1 second, see if I can find it. If not, yeah, it's I'm
That's all
not
right.
I'm not
That's all
finding it.
right, James. That's all right. Why don't we do our surprise games of the week? And you can maybe keep scrolling while we do those. And so, um,
No, but I checked my last source and I'm not finding it, so I'm good to move on.
good to keep going. Okay. All right.
Yep.
So, surprise games of the week, James. I mean, you kind of called this one, so maybe not a surprise for you, but Houston over Pittsburgh.
Hmm.
I was
Yeah,
surprised by it.
it's a surprise, and I said it. Houston, the way Houston was playing, it's prime for them to upset
Yeah.
Pittsburgh. I still would say how they did it is a surprise. Basically, motorboating the Steelers and just holding their ass down. I mean, the Steelers scored 2 field goals the entire game.
Yeah, they're in trouble offensively, man.
Yeah, they're in serious trouble offensively.
Maybe they
That's
should trade for Cousins. We're talking about every team and their mom should be trading for Cousins.
Mhm. Well, but that's the thing is Pickett is injured. We miss it in the injuries because it's not certain that he's going to miss a game, but he
Oh yeah. So I just
has a bone bruise in his knee.
yeah. So I mean I saw it. I didn't put it in there because I heard he's going to play.
Mhm.
But still, yeah. I mean he's injured a little bit, and I don't know.
Yeah,
He's just sucking,
see
is what he is.
what I read was he may play.
Okay. Yeah, man. It's a reminder that preseason means nothing because these guys looked
Hmm.
amazing in preseason, and now they look so horrible.
I'm going to say this, and nobody's going to know who this person is. You may know who this person is, but the problem with the Steelers is not any player they have.
Okay.
The problem with the Steelers is fucking Matt Canada. I've been
Their
saying this
offensive
for
coordinator.
he's no longer offensive coordinator, but he's the play caller and he's the quarterback's coach, and he does not know how to call a fucking play to save his goddamn life. The issue wasn't the offense, it was the plays that were being called. So when you demote him from offensive coordinator, you take away play calling duties because of the fact that he can't call a fucking game
Yeah,
worth shit.
I know, but and I know that it's not working with him, but he does go back to the end of the Ben Roethlisberger era, and he was a part of some very productive seasons with Roethlisberger. It's
But
just
he
that
wasn't. I don't believe he was the play caller during Roethlisberger
you
era.
think he was just a quarterback coach back then. Because I remember
So
Roethlisberger standing up for him at one point.
okay, so he was the quarterbacks coach for Pittsburgh in 2020. The year of 2016, 1 year, he was the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach for 1 year under Roethlisberger.
Well, what
Then
do you do then, James? What do you do if you're Pittsburgh? You just fire the
get
guy?
rid of his fucking ass.
Well,
Just
I
get
get it,
rid of
but
him.
mid-season like this, you just I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying that you got to hope that you've got like some brainchild sitting there that you can put into that role that's already in the building, man. Because going out and finding a guy at this time of year is going to be very hard to do.
Okay, maybe don't go out and find a guy, but have
And
somebody else
Tomlin's
call
a
the fucking
defensive guy,
plays.
man. It's not like he can start calling the offense. I mean, he's been in the league a long time. Maybe he could, but it'd be unorthodox.
So have fucking
Have a
um
different offensive coach do it.
have Mike Sullivan call the plays. He was the
Yeah.
offensive coordinator for the Giants in 2016 and 2017.
Okay. All right. You've got the answer. And Tomlin says there's going to be some changes. I think it's more than Canada. Honestly, I think that they've got a talent deficiency on that offense. I think that and I don't like saying it because I like Kenny Pickett, and I think maybe with the right, going to what you're saying, maybe with the right coach, kind of harnessing him, he could be a great quarterback. We saw glimpses of that, and he looks very poised for a young quarterback despite this year's struggles. But I think that they still have a weak ass offensive line. I think Najee Harris, he's an okay running back, but not a really good running back. Uh, and then at wide receiver, Deontay Johnson's been out. Pickens is looking good, but still very splashy. They got the tight end Fryermuth. I don't know. I just don't see a lot of consistency or reasons to be excited for their offense. I think they need help. I think that Kenny Pickett needs help, and
Well,
maybe the offensive coordinator is one of those pieces that he needs help with.
yeah, the offensive coordinator, and also, but the problem and I want to look it up with the year because we talked about it in the 2021 draft when they drafted Najee Harris. We talked about how that was a luxury pick.
Yep.
You need the
Yep.
offensive
No,
line
you're right.
first,
You're right.
and then wasn't it the next year in 22 they drafted Pickett, but they still didn't address the offensive line.
Yeah.
We talked
And they
about it when
just
they
got a guy this
drafted
year in
Pickett.
23, and he's not even starting, which is not a
Yeah.
good sign because did they swing and miss on that guy when they needed that guy 3 years ago?
hmm
They should have swung and missed 3 years ago so they could keep swinging.
Yeah, but I think with Broderick Jones,
Yeah.
I think there's more. I don't know why he's not starting because there's something weird in my mind going on there.
Okay. And maybe he'll get there. Maybe he'll get there. But I'm with you, James. They should have fixed the trenches before they started expanding outward, especially
hmm
with a quarterback, man. Don't get a quarterback until you can protect his ass. And ah, and with running backs, it's like, dude, you don't need to draft a first round running back if you've got an amazing offensive line. Like so many teams have proven that.
Yeah. So also, speaking of Broderick Jones, he is starting this week. So,
Okay. Well, that's part of their shakeup. They're getting him in the game.
well, no, because the other offensive tackle, the starting offensive tackle's out.
Okay. So he got hurt. So, all right. So other than that game, the other surprise game I had, which is maybe also not as much of a surprise now that we've seen enough games here, but was Cincinnati losing to Tennessee. And
hmm
I think maybe the surprise is just that nobody expected Cincinnati to just keep losing week in and week out. And Tennessee has looked really bad this year too. And so it's like,
hmm
oh man, then Tennessee just freaking rolled Cincinnati. It's like, what the hell is going on in Cincinnati, man? I don't know. I don't know if Burrow can turn it around. I mean, it's, like I've heard the talk about do you just sit him for a week and let him get better? Uh, if you're going to keep losing, you might as well sit him and let him get better. It's so bad
Yeah.
offensively for Cincinnati.
You might as well. So far this season, Cincinnati's been outscored 94 to 49.
It's so bad.
They have, let me see, passing touchdowns. They have two passing touchdowns, and they've scored 3 touchdowns all
Yeah.
fucking season.
Yeah. And their defense has looked good in games. It's just that
hmm
their offense is doing them zero favors. And so yeah,
Well, yeah,
eventually when your offense doesn't hang onto the ball long, your defense is going to get fucking burned at some point.
yeah. Time of possession wise, it's 4 minutes longer, almost exactly 4 minutes longer that they're playing defense than offense, and that's going to wear your defense down. The other issue is their turnover ratio is not good. Let me
Yeah,
see, where did that go?
it's hard to not just, I don't know. What do you do with them, dude?
I Well, we'll talk about them in a little bit more in our power rankings, which
Okay.
apparently did I I just opened up the file that I thought was my power ranking or this week's, and it was last week's, so I have to go back in and download it. But yeah, we'll get to Cincinnati a little bit more
Sure.
in the power rankings.
All right. Well, let me give you these aren't surprise games. They're just like nice surprise kind of stats or whatever from the games. And so Seattle in their just freaking thwopping whatever of the Giants got 11 freaking sacks. It's a
hmm
franchise record for them. 11 sacks in one game is just amazing for any team, anytime. Um, on the individual effort side, freaking Khalil Mack with the Chargers had 6 freaking sacks
hmm
in one game. I mean, it's like the dude still got it, man. That was amazing. And then the other big sort of, shocker sort of stat there is that with the Patriots losing 38-3 to Dallas, that is the biggest margin of defeat for Bill Belichick as a coach.
Hmm.
And so we keep talking about Kirk Cousins and people maybe trading for him. New England, you should think about it. Pittsburgh, you should think about it. I would say New York, you should think about it. The well, either New York team really, the Jets or the Giants. Although the Giants, I don't know how you do it when you're carrying Danny Dimes' contract. Of course, the Jets have Rodgers, but we live in a fake cap era. Any of these
Sure.
teams could be
Fake
making
cap
moves.
era. Fake cap era. Because
All right.
you can see, and you could see for instance, the Jets. The Jets are just a fucking quarter. Although, wait a minute. Sorry, the Jets are just a quarterback away from being a good team. And as I started to say that, I realized that Zach Wilson, and this is going to sound sacrilegious, so just bear with me. Zach Wilson outplayed Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, he had a really, really solid one game, James. And
No, I
maybe
know.
we're seeing some growth in Zach Wilson, but you look at the couple games before that, it was not there. And you look at all last year, it was not there. And so it's hard to trust it, but if you're a Jets fan, it would be amazing if he's starting to gain some traction.
Hmm. It would be. And like, I mean, it started to turn around a little bit against the Patriots. He had a decent game with the Patriots 2 weeks ago, but before that, I agree with you. It was not all there. But he seems to be starting to turn around. Hopefully for the Jets' sake, it's a sign of things to come, not a one-off like you had stated. Like when I was texting you that the way the game was going, I thought the Chiefs were going to lose the game.
Yeah.
And then the only reason the Chiefs won the game was because of a phantom defensive holding call that I don't even know what the fuck the ref was looking at. It's it was a call that was almost as bad as what game was it? Was it Amari Cooper stepping out of bounds when he was like a foot
Oh,
away from the sidelines? You remember what call I'm talking about?
no, I missed that one.
So it might have been, uh, I forget who it was. I want to say it was Amari Cooper, but it might be somebody else. It was a ridiculous call. If you haven't seen it, I'll try to find it.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm gonna have to try to find it, and because it was absurd.
All right. We'll keep
He
you
was like a
posted.
foot away from the sidelines, and it was a touchdown.
So he was a foot away inbounds, and they said he was out of
Yeah,
bounds, or the other way.
he was like a foot inbounds, and
Oh, and they called him out of bounds.
they called him out of bounds. And I'm trying to remember who it was because like he would have definitely scored on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have enough to be able to find it, but it was
That's fine. That's fine.
ridiculous.
All right. So were there any other surprise games or surprise moments or stats or anything on your end there, James?
Let me just take a look. Like there was like little
Sure.
things like the Jets, like I kind of hit on that. Um, no, not really. That was kind of about it.
Okay. Well, if you're good, and I know you're still Googling to find that guy, why don't we move to our power rankings? And if you want, I'll buy you a little bit of time. I'll start off with my 1 through 5, and then
It
you can
was
go.
it was Amari Cooper,
Okay, it was Amari Cooper.
and it was last week's game, not this past week's. and they called him out of bounds, and Cooper said he heard the ref apologize after blowing the
What?
whistle.
But it was in the end zone.
Yeah, no, he wasn't in the end zone. He was at like
Oh, on
the
the sideline, but he would have
yeah,
scored
he was like 40 yards from the end zone, caught the ball, and then
with
started
nowhere.
running to the end zone. Nobody in front of him,
But
nobody
they
even
already blew
near
the
him,
whistle.
but they blew the whistle calling him out of bounds.
Wow.
And
And you
it
can't
was
review that?
no, because the whistle blew.
Jeez.
Let me
That's a
see if
tough one, man. But, that's the thing is that the refs are human too. And so you got to like, it's like you can't have this perfect expectation of everyone all the time. Like shit's going to happen, man. It just, if it was a playoff game, I think it'd be a whole different story.
yeah, and it didn't affect the game like really because the Browns still won.
Oh, yeah. No, no. They had Dorian Thompson Robinson. They
Yeah.
lost.
All right. I'm gonna send you see if I can find a picture of it because
Sure. Just blatantly obvious.
yeah, it's ridiculously obvious. Like here we go. Here's a picture. Tell me this picture is in the article. And I will send it to you because
Sure.
it is absurd. And it looks like that's going to be a fucking. I just got to find this picture now, but we can move on and I can look for it at another point.
Okay. Well, here, I'll start off and you have time to keep looking. So we're going to do our week 5 power rankings. I'm giving you my 1 through 5, and absolutely nothing changed on my board, which made my work very easy this week. So Philadelphia at 1, Kansas City, Buffalo, San Francisco, Miami. And so 1 through 4, they all got a win, which means in my book for right now, nowhere to go on the board. I'm not going to panic and leapfrog or do anything crazy with these guys. 5, Miami lost, but because they lost to Buffalo and I had other teams in this range also lose, I'm keeping Miami at 5. They've been electric so far this year. The freaking 70-point game, whatever you want to say. I get it. They lost to Buffalo, but they're still top 5 on my board. So when you're ready, James, why don't you give me your 1 through 5?
All right. So mine had a little bit of a fluctuation here. At 1, San Francisco, I still have them there. They won. I had Miami at, I think it kind of what it boiled down to was I had Buffalo close up here and Buffalo just beat Miami.
Sure.
And so, but I now have Philadelphia at 2 who moved up 1 spot. At 3, I have Dallas. I know I just dropped them last week after the loss to Arizona, but when I started thinking about it, I think I was overly harsh on them because of the simple fact that it was like Thursday or Friday that they lost. Not
Oh, yeah.
Stefan,
Trevon Diggs.
Trevon Diggs. It was like Thursday or Friday. They couldn't really adapt. Emotional. I'm going to take that game out in my analysis of Dallas because of the situation behind it, and they boat raced fucking New England.
Okay.
This is the one. These guys are getting way too far up my board for my liking, and I don't know what I can do with it because it's like teams in
You
front of
can
them
just
keep.
pause them. You can just pause them.
I'm gonna have to because I have the fucking Lions at 4 now. I honestly think that the Lions are the third or fourth best team in the NFC.
Sure.
Um, so I'm
Yeah, and you got them
comfortable
at
with that.
4 because you
I
got
got
all NFC teams in your top 4.
which is a surprise. And the reason why Detroit moved up 1 spot, they're still ahead of Kansas City because Kansas City is not showing me that they are better than the Lions. 5, I have Kansas City. They also moved up 1 spot with me moving Miami down out of the second spot more or less.
It's intense, James. It's intense. I like it, but it's intense. All right, so at 6, I've got Baltimore. I moved them up one spot. Hard to go any more than that. They beat a team with a rookie quarterback, and so I'm not going crazy there. 7, Dallas. I moved them up one spot. Um, I like that you bumped them up and you're giving them a little bit more respect. For me, I'm just concerned that some of that was just New England being that bad. But I agree, Dallas has shown us some serious potential this year, and they should have some respect. At 8 with Cleveland, I dropped them down 2 spots. Maybe a little bit harsh because Watson was out, but this is also kind of just how the board played out. You're going to kind of hear that a lot with me tonight. The board sort of like dictated maybe some bigger moves than what normally would have been. 9, I've got the Chargers. I moved them up more. I moved them up 2, which I think is more than they probably deserve because they're playing extremely streaky football this year. Um, but honestly, when I look at my board, we've got a lot of shaky teams in this range. And so I do still really like the talent on paper for the Chargers, and they did get a win. So that's fine. And then at 10, I've got Seattle. I'm starting to come around to these guys, James. It's tough because, this is the opposite of the Chargers. On paper, their roster is not very highly rated, but they play great as a team and they get it done. And so, yeah, that's my 6 through 10, man. How about you?
All right, first I'm going to send you this picture
Sure.
in our chat that's going on the side, and I'll start, and then you tell me if Amari Cooper's out of bounds here, okay?
All right.
All right. So 6, I have Buffalo. I moved them up 3 spots from where they.
So it's not a foot, but I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, was the ref on the other sideline? Like, how do you
No,
mess that up?
the ref was right. You see the guy in the orange shirt at the front of the
Yeah.
picture? The ref was like right there on like the main yard line there, or he's like literally right there, or he might have been behind the play a little bit, but it was caught. He called the play like instantly.
I don't know how, I mean, and it's not even like one of these things where you could argue that it's like, oh, well, the other foot, and then he went out of bounds, and not even that. It's just blatantly in bounds.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Exactly.
that's a tough one. That's a tough one. It's because he's on
So
the hash. It's because his foot touched the hash mark, James.
yes, exactly.
But that's not the
Um,
out of bounds mark.
at 6, I have Buffalo. I moved them up 3 spots. I'm starting to come around to Buffalo. Outside of the first game against the
Yeah,
Jets, they've been getting better and better, and that defense
yeah.
is really fucking stacked. So I can see Buffalo being the team that jumps into the top 4 and drops the Lions down. At 7, I have Miami. I dropped them down 5 spots. They lost to Buffalo. It's not just they lost to Buffalo, but they didn't fucking show up to the game. If it was like a December game where it's cold, or a January game where it's snowing in Buffalo, it could be more forgivable than what I saw in Buffalo this past week. 8, I have the Chargers. I moved them up 2 spots. It might have been a little bit more of a move for them, but I dropped the team that I had way ahead of them, way down, and I dropped Atlanta down off the loss, and they beat Vegas. I thought it was a little closer than I would have liked it to be, but
Sure.
they have, like you said, they have the talent, but they're not showing it. 9, I have Atlanta. I dropped them down 1 spot after the loss to Jacksonville. It's not just they lost to Jacksonville. This is 2 weeks in a row. Is it 2 weeks in a row? Or is it? Hold on.
Yeah, because they lost to the Lions the week before, man.
Yeah. I started second guessing myself as I was saying it, if it was the week before or the week before that they lost the Lions. But it was the week before. The week before they lost 20-6 to the Lions, and then they lost 23-7 to Jacksonville. That's really, really concerning. Also, what I'm seeing with Atlanta is that Ritter is completely lost, and
Yeah, he's
I don't know.
mediocre at best, man, and they're
Yeah,
sticking with him.
they're sticking with him, which good for them. But you gotta put up points in this league.
I'm just
Can't
gonna
be
say it.
losing.
I'm just gonna say it. Every time a team needs a quarterback, just fucking trade for Cousins. You know
Like,
Minnesota doesn't want him.
but the reason why I didn't drop Atlanta further is because that game was in London, and Jacksonville's used to playing in London when Atlanta, because Jacksonville plays like every fucking year in London.
Yeah, sure.
Um, so
And they're
I'm
doing
gonna
two in a
give them
row this year, right?
yes, they last week and this week. I'm gonna give them a little bit of a pass, but not much. Just this week. If it's the same next week, then I'm gonna fucking kill their ass and drop them way the fuck down. At 10, I have Seattle. We kind of aligned on this. I'm starting to come around with Seattle too. They have no talent on paper, but they just all they fucking do is win. Yeah, they were playing the Giants, but I mean they were fairly dominant. Geno Smith is looking like he did last year. I thought he was going to take a step back, and he's not. So the more he consistently plays like that, they're going to keep moving up.
Yes, yes, indeed, my friend. Okay, so then I've got the Lions at 11 here, James. Very much the same comment as what I said with the Seahawks. I'm coming around to them. It's very tough. I try hard to not drink that Kool-Aid. It's like
Hmm.
you don't get high on your own supply kind of thing. We get burned every time we do it. But I do like what I'm seeing, and I do believe there are a lot of shaky teams, like I've said, in this range of teams. There are so many teams with big fucking cracks in them. Detroit's looking pretty goddamn good right now. And then at 12, I've got Jacksonville. I moved them up 5 spots. And some of this is that they're getting a boost by default because the board worked in their favor. And then some of it is just that, they got another win. They're 2-2. And a lot of teams in this range are sitting at 2-2. At 13, I've got Cincinnati. I dropped them 4 spots. I've been holding on as tight as I can for them. If they don't start winning, there might have to be a big drop on the board here because it's just getting ugly. At
Hmm.
14, Pittsburgh, it's fairly similar to what I'm seeing with Cincinnati. And it's very hard because Tomlin has always coached a very disciplined team. And man, they're just so bad, man. They're just so bad. So I don't know. And then at 15, I've got the Buccaneers. Big move up the board for the Buccaneers. I moved them up 6 spots. At this point, I'm letting their record speak for itself. They're sitting at 3-1, and I think that wins can outweigh flaws at this point in the season. And so I like it, and it's just kind of an appropriate adjustment for me on the board. Back to you at 11, man.
All right, so at 11, I have Tennessee. This is kind of an overcorrection, but I liked what I saw with Tennessee this past week. But then again, it could be with Cincinnati. Plus, I moved Cincinnati so close to Tennessee. Like you had kind of started to pull the string before this week. I was holding tight and like keeping them there and
Yeah.
keeping them there and keeping them there. And it was finally like it's time to let the cord rip. And honestly, I could have dropped Cincinnati the way they're playing down further on the board, but I didn't. I'm hesitant to do that because I see the talent on this team.
Yeah.
Um, but I dropped Cincinnati down 8 spots. At 13, it's a mistake. I should have dropped Cincinnati down 9 spots because Cincinnati lost to Baltimore just a couple weeks ago, and I have Baltimore at 13. I didn't catch this
That's all right. Don't worry about it,
when I
man.
was doing my power rankings. Oh well. I think overall Cincinnati is a better team than Baltimore, but they have to show it.
Yeah.
And they haven't. 13 and 14. Last week I had Cleveland, then Baltimore. I just flipped them. I could have killed Cleveland a little bit more for how bad they lost to Baltimore, but based on what was going on around the board here, I didn't.
Yeah, and
I couldn't
Watson
do
was
a
out,
lot of
so it's
losses.
kind of,
Watson
yeah.
was out, and exactly. 15, I have New Orleans. I dropped them down 3 spots. This is another team that got the benefit of what went on right here on the board, and only got a 3-spot drop because they should have tanked down, but a lot of teams that I had in here lost.
I got you. Yeah, all right. So then for me at 16, I've got Tennessee, and so I gave them a nice boost on my board. I bumped them up 6 spots. Uh, Part of that is they're getting the benefit of the board, and then part of that is there was almost like just this fucking landslide of teams losing in this range on my board, and so that's fine. I have zero faith in Tennessee this year, okay? But this is just one of these ones where it worked in their favor big time on the board. It's 17. I've got the Falcons. I dropped them down 1 spot. We already covered them pretty well, I think. 18. We got the Patriots. I dropped them down 4. Tempted to go further. I'm just struggling to find quality teams here, and so I'm going to wait and see, can they get their shit together or not. 19, I've got the Jets. Drop them down 4 also. I like the glimmer of hope with Zach Wilson, but we got to see more of that, and then maybe the slide for the Jets stops and I can start raising them upward. And then at 20, I've got the Packers. So I dropped them down 2 spots. This is like right after I moved them up a whole shitload of spots last week. I don't necessarily regret that because I've got the Lions pretty highly rated on my board now. But I am going back to monitoring the Packers and Jordan Love because I was very suspicious of them to begin with and maybe got a little carried away. I guess we'll find out. So over to you at 16, man.
16, I have the Jaguars. They kind of got a benefit of teams in front of them losing. I kind of, with the London games, I kind of try to throw those, or the Europe games, I kind of try to temper what happened because it's a whole completely new situation for a lot of these players. Like 5 hours ahead or 6 hours ahead. And so that fucks with your body to only have 1 week to adapt to it. 17, I have Vegas. I dropped them down 1 spot from the loss. It's kind of a benefit of a lot of teams here losing, and not a lot of teams losing, but a lot of what's kind of went on around them where I probably should have dropped them more for losing as that's not the right score.
No, 24-17, right? But either way,
Yeah.
You're being very generous to the Raiders.
Yeah. 18, we aligned this week. Ironically, I don't look at your power rankings when I do mine, and I do mine, and then I paste them in. Somehow you dropped the Patriots 4, I dropped them 1. We ended up aligning. If it wasn't Dallas that they played, I probably would have killed them more. But
Sure.
Dallas is a really fucking good team, so I didn't really kill them much for getting slaughtered by Dallas. And then
we both had Seattle at 10 as well. I'm just looking now that you mentioned that.
Yeah. Huh. That's about all we have the same this week. But 19, I have Minnesota. I dropped them, or I gave them a 1-spot boost for beating Carolina. I had 19 and 20, or I'm sorry, I had 20 and 21 as Minnesota, Carolina. Based on what happened around the board here, Minnesota and Carolina moved up to 19 and 20. Also part of it is because I dropped a team down that I had at 15. I dropped them way down based on what I'm seeing, and so that gave the boost. Otherwise, I'm unimpressed with Minnesota. They beat Carolina, big fucking whoop. They got a boost because
somebody had to win, or it would have been a tie.
Somebody had to win. It was a 1-score game. From what I remember from the game, Carolina had a chance to tie it up at the end, and they just couldn't get it done. Carolina at 20, 1-spot boost. I really wanted to leave these two teams where I had them because that feels right from what I'm seeing, but I dropped the team down that I had ahead of them, so they got the luck of a boost from that.
I got you. Okay. Yeah, and hey, by the way, we got Indianapolis both at 26 as well, so we'll get there in a minute. But we've got some alignment tonight, and then even then, some teams are pretty close. But so at 21, I've got Washington. I dropped them down 1. I thought they hung in there pretty well against a powerhouse team, but ultimately lost. 22, we've got the Saints. I dropped them down 3. From recent weeks that I've been getting down on them. I just feel like when I watch them play, something is off with them offensively, especially. And, them losing to Tampa Bay, I think just kind of further supports some of those suspicions that I've had. 23, I've got the Vikings. I moved them up 3, but it's more than they deserve, James. The board just worked in their favor. I am way lower on Minnesota than you are. I've been that way going into the season. I was worried that last year was a big time fluke, and I don't know. It's just not looking good for them so far. 24, I've got the Rams. I bumped them up 3. I think Stafford and Nakua are keeping it interesting for this team. Um, they've far surpassed my expectations. I'll tell you that. And so it's nice to see, even though I'm not a huge Stafford fan now that he's with the Rams, but whatever. 25, I've got the Texans. I moved them up 4 spots. I'm going to start riding this hype train for as long as I can. We already covered it pretty well. Stroud, Collins, playing great, man. Back to you at 21.
So at 21, I have Houston. I gave them a huge boost last week. And so you're just a little bit behind me on getting on that hype train for Houston. I moved Houston up. So on my power rankings, I go from the top down. And so I moved Houston up, and then I moved Pittsburgh down, and then I looked at Houston and moved them up, and it's like, well, they just beat the shit out of Pittsburgh, so they have to be ahead of Pittsburgh because they had them like 1 or 2 spots away. So at 22, I have Pittsburgh. I dropped them 7 spots after that loss. They look in disarray. It's beating a dead horse, just continually talking about all the problems I have. Like I peeked at your note. It's a surprise to see from this from a Tomlin coach team. I don't know what to say about it. 23, I have the Rams. I gave them a 3-spot boost. It's actually a little bit more of a boost than I should have given them. There's a couple funny things that happen on my board in here, and we'll get to one of them that I just noticed that we mentioned. But 3-spot boost beat the Colts. They struggled with it. It was an OT win. They were ahead. I want to say they were ahead by like 20 points at halftime. And then, they were ahead 20-0 at halftime. And then they let Indianapolis come back in. They were up 23-0 before Indianapolis scored in that game. So really 3-spot boost is generous for them based on that fact, but it's also a factor of what happened around here. Tampa Bay at 24, I gave them a 3-spot boost. They beat the crap out of New Orleans. I didn't see much of the game. Can't really comment on it. The score, the flow of the game that I did see, it felt like Tampa Bay was just dominant in the game. 25, I have the Commanders. I didn't move them from last week. I really probably, if things were differently, I probably should have moved them up after this past week's game. They fought Philadelphia well. They were right in it till the end. I think it was another. Thinking about it, I think they were down at one point and fought back.
And people were giving Rivera a hard time for not going for 2 at the end because they thought, hey, Riverboat Ron, man, you got that chance, you should go for it. He ended up saying in the post game that he thought his guys were tired and he wanted to give them a little break and thought they could win it in overtime. And the media just chewed him up for saying that.
It was a competitive game throughout. It was 100% back and forth. In fact, the Commanders took the lead in at halftime. They were up 17-10 at halftime, and then it's just back and forth and back and forth on it, and it was a good game. The overtime, I wasn't in the boat. I thought my instant reaction to it was when they scored that touchdown with no time on the clock to win the game now. That was my instant reaction. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, so they should go from two. That was my first guess.
Yeah,
So
you're
I'm not
playing with
second.
house money. You're
Yeah.
playing against one of the top teams. You might as well just go for it.
Well, what the rule is that they should that is said all the time. At home, you play for the tie. On the road, you play to win.
Oh, that's good. I don't know if I've heard that before. Okay.
And but the analytics of it, if for those people that are killing him, I actually went down. I actually had found the analytics of it. I don't have it to reference, but I looked at it, and it was like a point nine different in win chance by kicking by going for two instead of kicking the extra point. It
Gotcha.
was so close. It was basically a coin flip
Yeah,
on
you
which
just
one you should do
decide based on your
analytically.
narrative. Yeah.
Yeah, and you decide based on your gut, and which is what Rivera did. Overtime didn't go that well. They went three and
Yeah.
out,
But you
and
don't have to go for it every time. I know they
no,
call them riverboat round and all that, but sometimes it just doesn't work out.
yeah, they went for they overtime didn't work out. They went three and out. Philadelphia took some risks in overtime by going for it on 4th and 1 and stuff like that. Um, but it was a good game.
All right, back to me at 26. I've got the Colts. I dropped them down one spot. I think we've talked a lot about them at this point. Um, all I'll say is the future's bright for Indy, man. I
Mhm.
think, they've got a lot of potential. At 27, I've got Denver. I moved them up one spot. And honestly, in hindsight, looking at it, I probably should have them at the very bottom with Chicago because that game was so piss poor. But I had them at 28 last week and they won, so I moved them up to 27. And then at 28, I've got the Raiders. I moved them down four spots. Obviously, James, I don't give a shit about McDaniels, and
Mhm.
you can see that reflected very heavily on my board. It's probably lower than they deserve, but they're not winning, so what the heck. And then at 29, I've got the Giants. One of my biggest moves, season to date, I dropped them six spots. I'm just not going to hold back, man. They look like total fucking garbage, and until they get their shit together, this is where they're at. And I've wondered, is this a Saquon's not playing, and so their offense just doesn't have that additional element that they need? I don't know. I don't even think that's it, man. I think that just all around they fucking suck, and so I dropped them down six. And then at 30, I've got the Cardinals. They were at 30 last week. Despite the loss, they're playing some inspiring football, and so I decided to keep them where they were at. Over to you at 26, man.
26, I have the Colts. This is the weird one. They dropped four spots. I'm trying to figure out why I dropped them four spots, and I think what it has to do with is that first half. The first half stuck out in my mind more than the second half of the game. They have to play better in the first half, and from what I remember, now that I'm thinking about it, the first half has pretty much been the problem with the Colts. I'm going to go back and look real quick at the box score, or
Sure.
yeah, the at it, yeah. So okay, so against the Ravens, they scored 10 in the first half. First quarter didn't score. The first quarter is eh, but it was the Texans. They played one good first half this year. One good first half this year. They besides the Texans game, they haven't scored in the first quarter, and I think that's what's sticking in my mind with the drop.
Sure.
27, I have the Giants. Um, this offseason, the Giants made a huge mistake. It's evident they made a huge mistake. They had all the leverage with Daniel Jones,
Yeah.
and they paid him.
Dable
And
wanted to back him, dude.
and I don't understand why. We talked
Yeah.
about it then. I don't understand why they gave him as much money as they did. I don't even remember what the contract was, but it was like, what the fuck? I dropped him 3 spots. I just, if it weren't for some other things going on around there, I probably would have dropped them down closer to 29. But just how my board lines up, I had killed some teams, and those teams are still down here. So 28, I have the Jets. I give them a 2 spot bump off that game against the Chiefs. I think the problem with the Jets is the quarterback. We've
Yeah.
hit that a million times. Um, but I think it's a really good on paper. Besides the quarterback, it's a really solid team.
Oh yeah.
And if they could just get that quarterback playing, this could be when, like I said, when they signed Aaron Rodgers, they instantly became a Super Bowl contender because they had a quarterback. I was concerned if Rodgers could still do it, but because Rodgers' history, aside from last year, they instantly became a Super Bowl contender. Um, Unfortunately, he went out, and you know, shit happens. It's a contact sport. 29, I have Arizona. I didn't move Arizona off of. I didn't move them even though they lost 35-16. And the reason I didn't move, and I said this to you, I think Arizona is playing better than we give them credit for. The
Yeah.
problem with Arizona is the first 3 games they dominated the second half, but they played like shit in the first half. This last game, they dominated the first half, played like shit in the second half. If they put together a complete game, that team can actually win some games, and which is a surprise for it. 30, I have Green Bay. I dropped them 2 spots. I think Green Bay is going to be my team that's kind of going to fluctuate between like 25 and 30. I started not quite getting on the Jordan Love hype train, or bandwagon, but I kind of started believing more and more in him. And this past week against Detroit was a reality check for him.
Yeah, it's almost like you're looking at Green Bay kind of the way I'm looking at Minnesota in some ways, but yeah, it's different teams but similar negativity. So,
Mm-hmm.
all right, so I'll lead us off here for the freaking dumpster fire, James, and nothing's changed on my side. By the way, I'm looking at your side, and I think you got it right here. But at my side, I've got Chicago at 31. These guys are their own worst enemy. That's why they're 0 and 4. They lost, nowhere for them to go, so they stayed where they were at. 32, I've got Carolina, same kind of thing, 0 and 4. They're getting desperate for a win. Until they do, they're just going to stay here at rock bottom. Even though I don't know, man, like it's so hard for me to say that they're better than Chicago. I mean, I want to say they are, but they're also 0 and 4, and so until one of these teams kind of breaks that log jam, they're both down here at the bottom, man. Give me your dumpster fire, James.
All right. There's no change to my dumpster fire. I had Denver at 31 last week. They beat Chicago. They stayed at 31. Didn't move up because they beat the only team in the league that I had worse than them in Chicago. One thing about Chicago, and this will be the interesting, and I don't think you realize this. Chicago, the way things are going for Carolina and the way things are going for Chicago could be the first team ever in NFL history to have the number 1 and 2 pick in the NFL draft. Because
Yeah,
Chicago traded this past year's number 1 pick to Carolina for their first round this coming year.
yeah.
So, and I wanted to check because I think they do play each other. I'm pretty sure they do. Yeah, they
Yeah,
do
yeah, I
in
think they
week
do,
10.
right? Because, yeah, Detroit's playing Carolina this
Oh
week. So,
God, it's a Thursday night game too.
That's fine, because I don't get to see it.
That's a Thursday night game. Oh my gosh, that's terrible.
I don't
Oh,
even care, dude.
that was
I'm still pissed about the fucking Prime thing, but yeah.
yeah. Poor fucking Amazon. Like they don't get any good fucking games.
Yeah, and by the way, it's the same bullshit with the fucking London game, dude. So I didn't get to watch the fucking London game because it was on ESPN Plus. And so, and by the way, I have ESPN Plus, but I couldn't get in the fucking app. And so it's like,
I had the same fucking issue. I had the same fucking issue. I have ESPN Plus. I tried to log in, and then it would let me log in, but then I went to watch the game, and it would try to get me to sign up
yeah,
for ESPN Plus.
yeah.
I was
So
so fucking
just
pissed.
just all this
You could have
streaming
you could have
bullshit's
watched you could have
garbage,
watched
dude.
The Toy Story version on Disney Plus.
I did record that for my kids, and my son liked it. He thought it was super cool, and I thought it was good because like they sort of like accelerate through the game, and so like you don't have to see a full 3 hour game or whatever. But like for my kid, that was fun, and he saw the Big City Greens hockey thing that they did like a year ago,
Hmm.
and I think it's a good way, man. It's a good way to like get these kids into the game and kind of bring them up that way. So whatever.
So I watched it live. So as the game was going, I watched it because I couldn't get into ESPN Plus
Oh, so they did the whole thing, the whole.
live.
All right, yeah. So I only saw the recording after, which like only
No,
cuts to like the big drives and the big plays.
no, they did it live,
All right,
and
so
it was
yeah, because you
fucking.
couldn't get into ESPN Plus, you watched the whole
So,
thing in cartoon mode or animation
yeah,
mode. Oh
and
shit.
the only annoying thing about it is when the ball went out of bounds or the ball it was like they would place it right there, and then every once in a while, as they were about to snap, the ball would be moving back to the blue line,
Okay,
and like 'cause it was inadvertently placed ahead, and so they would be moving it back, and then all of a sudden the play be going on when the center was like a yard away from the fucking ball.
gotcha, gotcha.
But it was pretty. It was they did a good job with it. I was really annoyed about ESPN Plus and not being able to get
Yeah.
into the fucking app, but it is what it is.
All right, all
Anything else
right.
on the power rankings? Or are you ready to move on to this week's game picks?
Yeah, let's go to the game picks, man, and I'll let you just kind of take that ball and run with it, James.
All right. So my struggles continue. I got 8 right. You got 13 right. You're beating me by fucking 10 games already. I think I just have to scrap my model and go back to gut instinct on it.
It's a
Um,
long season still, but yeah, I mean, and remember that first month last year was atrocious for both of us. And so I think I
you're
just might be a little bit ahead of the curve this year. That's it, man.
you're at 66%. I'm at 50%. Hey, 50% is decent, said nobody.
But our best years are like in that 65-ish percent, right? So,
Yeah.
you can get there pretty quickly.
I can get there pretty quickly. I have to figure out what the fuck's wrong with my model. And let me get to the right tab. Okay, first up,
And
we
by the
have.
way, I've been smoking the regular season. You've been smoking the playoffs. It's all right, man. We're just on par.
Yeah, I know. It's it's just frustrating.
I got you, man. You want more. You want more.
I want more. I have to figure out. I have to have the time, and I haven't had the time to sit down and just really look at my model and figure out what the fuck's going on with it.
Okay.
First up, we have Thursday night, Chicago at Washington.
Ugh.
Lucky Amazon Prime. So, all you really need to know about, well, these are two fucking shitty teams. I think Washington's slightly better. Um, Washington is favored by 5.5.
Jeez, that's a lot.
12 of the last 15 meetings between these two teams, Washington has covered. But the Commanders in their last 4 games as a favorite, they're 0-4 against the spread. Where the Bears this season are 0-3-1 against the spread. The only thing about this game that I found is interesting is it probably will be over the over-under on the game. I had Chicago actually winning against the spread. I had 21-19 Chicago. I don't know how Chicago scores 19 points, but hey, I'm going with Washington.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm with you, dude. I'm going with Washington. I don't know how it's a 5.5 point spread because both these teams are fucking garbage. When I look at my heat map, it's a little bit in Chicago's favor offensively, and some of that is just because of Fields and his mobile ability and whatnot. Uh, but it's also heavily in the favor of Washington on defense because, as we know by now, Chicago's defense is garbage, and so it's in Washington. I like Washington here.
All right. Next game we have Jacksonville versus Buffalo. Buffalo's the home team at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium
Yes,
in
the
London.
home team. Yes.
Yes, exactly. My model has Buffalo winning 23-17. I'm actually going to override my model on this. And the reason I'm overriding my model on this is because Jacksonville has been there. By the time Sunday's game comes around, they will have been there for almost 2 full weeks. And I think the time difference is huge when you're doing 5 hours. Like we talk about like West Coast teams playing on the East Coast and how they struggle.
Yeah.
It's even worse going to London. I think there's a huge advantage for the Jaguars for being able to stay there an extra week for the game, and I'm gonna go with Jacksonville.
Okay. I've updated the pick. Um, I'm still gonna stick with Buffalo. I like both of these teams, but I like Buffalo a lot. And you kind of talked about it earlier that Buffalo had some maybe question marks and some struggles earlier in the season, especially week one, whenever that was. But they've been looking pretty goddamn strong since then. And I think that when you're like a championship caliber type team, you're going to win even when you have this adversity. And so I'm going with Buffalo.
Next up, we have Houston at Atlanta. Honestly, when I modeled this out, I came up with a 4-point victory for Atlanta, and I tried to find a reason to override my model. There are reasons there. If this was in Houston, I probably would override my model, but I'm not going to, and I'm going to stick with Atlanta in the game.
Sure. All right, yeah. So I'm on the other side of the fence. I'm going with Houston here, and this is one of my overrides for this week. And so last week was the first week I did overrides. And if I go back and check, I was, let's see, I was 2 out of 3 on my overrides. So it's not like it's like earth shattering, it's just kind of par for my record. But um, I'm taking Houston here. When I look at the heat map, it definitely favors Atlanta. I just look at these last couple weeks with how Atlanta's been so flat, and the last couple weeks how Houston has been booming. And so I'm going hype train for Houston. That's all I'm doing here.
Mm-hmm. It makes sense. Next, we have Carolina at the Detroit Lions. While my model doesn't have the Lions covering the current spread of 9.5, I have it as a one-score game. In fact, I have it 21-18 in Detroit's favor. The interesting tidbit I found is since Dan Campbell has been coach of the Lions, they are 14-5 against the spread. The best against the spread record in that span of all the other teams.
Nice.
I'm completely buying the hype train for the Lions, hook, line, and sinker. Last year they got boat raced by Carolina. What was the final score of that game? Let me look that up. It was ridiculous.
Oh, they ran all over us, man.
But yeah, it was like 37-14, I think. 37-23.
Foreman, he had like a freaking career day.
165 yards for Foreman. Yeah. I'm buying the revenge factor. I'm buying the Lions. I'm all in on the Lions 100%.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm going with Detroit too. My heat map is entirely green except for the defensive front seven, which I believe Carolina's a little bit more imposing. I am nervous that the spread is that big, James. I think Detroit gets the win here. But at some point, it's like, do you wonder, could they have one of these trap games like Dallas had with Arizona? Could they be looking at Carolina like, oh, we're just going to roll them, let's move on? If I'm Detroit, I don't look at any game like that. But I'm just saying. So I'm going Detroit here, man.
All right. Next up, we have Tennessee at Indianapolis.
Divisional game.
The spread is actually a pick'em on this game. My model had Tennessee winning 21-17. I don't know the way Indy's playing. I don't know how Indy loses this game. And I'm going to override my model and go with Indy on it.
Oh, man, you're feeling the flow here. Let me just update this. Okay, so I've got Tennessee, and my model has Tennessee by almost 5, but I hear what you're saying. My model is not like accurately reflecting how bad Tennessee's been and how good Indianapolis has been. But still, I do like Tennessee's coming off of a good win. They got Derrick Henry. He can control the tempo of the game. Indy's getting Jonathan Taylor back.
Awesome.
It's all right. I'm going to stick with Tennessee, man.
All right. Next up, we have my survivor pick of the week, which is the New York Giants at the Miami Dolphins. And my definite survivor pick is the Giants. I mean, it's going to be the Dolphins. I don't understand how this game is close at all. Period. Miami's going to go out with they got a fire lit under them by how bad they were embarrassed in Buffalo this past week, and the Giants just don't have the talent and defense that Buffalo does to hold that offense down.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not like trying to stir shit up here, but Saquon's been missing time. Eckler has been missing time. These running backs pitching a fit about their contracts and whatever else. And it's like with the Giants, I would give the green to the Giants at running back if Barkley plays, but I don't know if he's going to play. Aside from that, man, it's like almost all in favor of Miami. And so I've got to take Miami in this game.
Yeah, I would wonder how much you were drinking if you said you were going to take the Giants. Next up, we have the Saints at the Patriots. These are two teams that are playing really shitty right now, and ironically, The spread's by 1.5. New England's favored by 1.5, and my model has New Orleans winning by 1.
Okay.
I'm going to stick with my model because I can't on these two, on the Saints and the Patriots. I can't place my finger on which team really is playing better right now.
Yeah, I think they're both playing bad. Oh God, it's such a. I can see this one being a dogfight, James. I really can,
Mm-hmm.
because I see a lot of similarities in these teams. Um, my model has the Patriots winning, and I read something about Belichick calling Mac Jones's issues last week uncharacteristic, and I'm just going to stick with the
So what
model
about the
here.
issues the week before?
No, I agree. I agree. But you also know that I'm down on the Saints, and when I defer to my power rankings, I've got the Patriots ahead of them. So I'm going with the Patriots here.
No, that's fine. I'm just saying, like, on Belichick, you can't say last week was uncharacteristic.
Yeah, when there's a
Than
pattern.
when there's a pattern. All right. Next up, we have the Ravens at the Steelers.
Sure.
The Ravens have a chance this week to get a ridiculous foothold on this division. They so far week 2 they won at Cincinnati. Week 4 they won at Cleveland. This game's at Pittsburgh. While I have this as a really low scoring game, I have Baltimore winning by a touchdown, and I really can't think of a reason the way Pittsburgh's playing it to even consider overriding it. So I'm going to go with Baltimore in that game.
I got you. Yeah, and so this one is an override in my model, which just goes to show that I've still got some flaws in my model. I'm showing Pittsburgh winning by 3, and I just don't see it. I mean, if they were playing the way that maybe I would envision them to play, I would probably give them that edge because they're at home, but they're just
Mm-hmm.
playing so off from what we expect out of Pittsburgh Steeler football. I got to override it, and I got to go Baltimore here.
All right. Next, we have Cincinnati at Arizona. And I'm going to be honest with you. When I got this result in my model, I said, "This is my what the fuck result."
All right.
Like, I don't understand, and it's not like it's by like a point. It's by more. It's by 4 points. I have Arizona winning this game in my model,
By 4.
and I mean, honestly, the way Cincinnati's been playing, I have no faith in them. I'm
Yeah.
will I The way Cincinnati's been playing, I can't. And like I said, Arizona's been playing really good halves of football. I think this might be the first game that Arizona puts together a good game of football and wins.
Yeah, this one's tough, man, because honestly, had Cincinnati not went out last year and had a strong season, I would have called him a fluke the whole time because
Hmm.
I have never been a fan of their head coach. I think Burrow is legit, even though this year something is like crazy messed up. I just have always been down on Zach Robinson as a head coach.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't even know if it's the coaching this year. It's just so many things are not working for Cincinnati. My problem is my fucking heat map is entirely green for Cincinnati, except for the defensive back 4. And so I have to go with Cincinnati here. The play might say Arizona has a shot to win. My model is just way too strong for Cincinnati. I have got to hope they're going to win this one, and that's what I'm going with.
And you said Zach Robinson, it's Zach Taylor.
Sorry, thank you.
No, it's like it said it and it clicked in my head. I was like, that's not right. That's not right. I had to
No, and
look it up to make sure.
I think even when I said it, my brain was like, "That's not right," but I was like, just going ahead, you know. So
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm not killing you for it. I just for
yeah, no, hey, we got
those
to
out
help
there
each
that
other out
watch,
here. Thank you.
those out there
See,
that
that's how
hang on
much I
every
don't like
word.
him. I don't even know his name.
Yeah. So our next game is the Eagles at the Rams.
Yes.
So my model, I don't know. The spread on this game is where the fuck did it go? Sorry, there it is. Um, Surprisingly, the spread on this game is only 4.5 for the Eagles, and that's a testament on how the Rams have been playing this year. My model has Philadelphia winning by 3 on it. I can't come up with a reason to pick the Rams in this game. I did find that as a home underdog with the Rams, Matthew Stafford is 1-1-1.
Okay.
It's a little bit worse when you have it add in his Lions career with it, but I'm not gonna just go
Yeah, I
there.
mean that's a whole different thing. Yeah.
But Jalen Hurts, when he is, this is the 25th consecutive regular season start that Jalen Hurts' team is favored. In that span, outright, he is 23-2.
Okay.
I'm with the Eagles. I can't come up with a reason to pick the Rams.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. And so so my model it's I'm taking Philly. I'm just telling you that up front. But my model does give the edge in some regard to the coaching staff for the Rams, which I believe is in part because you have two new coordinators for Philly. If you take that into consideration, the heat map does kind of zigzag a little bit back and forth between the teams. But overall, it has Philly winning this game by a healthy margin. And so I got to go with Philly, man.
All right. Next up, we have the New York Jets at the Denver Broncos.
Oh, powerhouse. Powerhouse.
Powerhouse game. My model has Denver winning 21-14 on it. And what I sent you was on my model. Just looking at it, I can't pick Denver to win a game. From what I've seen from Denver, I cannot pick them to win a game.
So you're switching to the
I'm
Jets.
going to override my model and go with the Jets.
Okay. No, I'm glad you're doing that. When you picked Denver, I thought, oh, what the fuck is James doing here? This is bad.
So,
But
so when I send you my picks, sometimes I've had the time to look at it and get a reaction. This time I didn't have the time to look at it and get it and figure out what I wanted
okay.
to on my model. So I just put what my model was, and then I opened up the spreadsheet again and like just now tonight, and I was like, what the fuck was I thinking there? No, abort.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you switched the pick. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't see I don't see Denver. Ah, man, the Jets just played such an inspiring game against the Chiefs. I know it's at Mile High, which makes it kind of tough, but I got to go with the Jets here, man. I think Denver's so
Mhm.
bad, dude.
All right, lucky for Cousins, this next game's not on Sunday night.
Not prime time.
It's not prime time. Kansas City at Minnesota. The way Kansas City's been playing, I'm not really surprised at the line being 5. Interesting tidbit is somebody's going to have to win against the spread in this game, or it could be a tie. But the Vikings in their last 9 games as an underdog are 1-7-1 against the spread. And the Chiefs are, and those of you keeping score, if you're 1-7-1 against the spread as an underdog, that means you potentially had won one of those games. The Chiefs are 12-5 against the spread in their last 7 road games. So the spread apparently means nothing, but I just wanted to throw that out there. My model
Sure.
has Kansas City winning 31-24, which is more what I would expect the spread to be of 7, not the 5 that it actually is. It hasn't moved since open from what I'm seeing. So
Okay.
money's not coming. It's if money's coming in on the game, it's pretty even.
I gotcha. Yeah, I'm not going to overthink it. I'm taking the Chiefs. I don't care. They've been playing sort of like subpar by their standards. Minnesota is like way fucking subpar. And so I'm going Chiefs.
Next up, we have the Cowboys at the 49ers. So the Cowboys have won each of the last 3 meetings against the 49ers. But
Wait, minus playoffs?
it must be. I
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah, must be regular season. Yeah.
Yeah, it must be regular season. Point blank on this, I said this, I think it was going into last week. When Brock Purdy loses a regular season game, I will consider picking against him. I'm on San Francisco.
Yeah, no, I like the way you break it down. I will say this. For it being on the road for Dallas, my model has it less than 3, which means these guys are really evenly matched. But that being said, I believe Shanahan and the 49ers, they're a better team, they're better coached. They could far surpass that what I've got in my model. Dallas, on the other hand, has talent, has shitty coaching, and often disappoints. And so I'm definitely taking San Francisco.
And then we have the Monday night game of Green Bay at the Raiders. Green Bay's favored by 2. I must have a typo on this, but I have the over-under as 44.5, but the open over-under number I have listed as 0. So I
Yes, it's
must
just
have a
going to be
typo.
a 0-0 tie.
The Raiders are 0-3 against the spread in their last 3 games. Josh McDaniels in his career as a head coach his last 43 games as a head coach, he's 16-27 against the spread. I say his last 43 games because he's been a head coach for 49 games, and he started out 6-0 against the spread.
Okay.
Each of the last 5 meetings Green Bay has covered. That was with Rodgers, and possibly Favre also, depending on how far back it goes. My model has Green Bay winning 27-21. I did, when I saw this, I considered overriding it because I don't like how Green Bay's playing this year, but I equally don't. If it was against any other team, I possibly would have overrode my model. But since it's against the Raiders, who I don't like how they're playing at all this year, I left it with Green Bay.
Yeah, I gotcha. And so, yeah, for me, I mean, I think that when you look at the rosters and you look at the heat map, hypothetically, the Raiders should be better on offense than the
Mm-hmm.
Packers. But when you look at the way they're playing this year, it's not necessarily working out that way. I think on defense, the Packers are very clearly better than the Raiders, and they've definitely played better defensively than the Raiders. And so, you've got just some inconsistency there. I give the benefit of the doubt to Green Bay. I'm taking the Packers, man.
And then we have next Thursday's game, which is the it's so terrible. It's Denver at the Chiefs. Oh my gosh, it's
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to. We're both taking Kansas City. Come on.
yeah. We're both taking Kansas City. Like I looked at Denver's schedule, and I'm hard pressed to find another win on their schedule. Possibly Week 18 at the Raiders. Possibly.
Yeah, it's garbage. Like you said, a lot of bad Thursday night games.
Why is that's weird? That's a weird day for the the. Are they flexing the Raiders game against the Lions?
Oh, I did hear about a Lions game getting flexed, but I don't know which one it was.
So I have to. I have to. What week was it? Let me get back to that because like it caught my eye that it was it's listed. It's a Sunday game and it's listed as to be determined. And it's not.
Okay.
It's not like it's Christmas Eve or something. It's week 15. Did they bail out? Huh. There's one, two, three, four, 5 games in week 15 that are listed as to be determined. Oh, okay. So it could be flexed to the 16th. Okay. That makes more sense. It just caught my eye as weird. It's not going to be
Sure.
flexed
Yeah.
to Saturday. There's no way the league would do that. Anyways, yeah, we're both on Kansas City.
All
Any
right.
final
Are you?
thoughts for the game picks?
No, I'm good on the game picks, man. Are you ready to go question of the week?
I am, except for the fact that I accidentally closed all the research that I had just done while we were talking.
Okay. Well, you've got a few minutes to pull it up because you know me. I'm gonna ask the question, and then I'm gonna give you my take on the question, and then I'll get your take on the question. And so, yeah, I guess let's just start off by saying our question of the week tonight. It was submitted by one of our viewers. I won't say his name just because I didn't get his permission to say his name, but he's a Lions fan, and he's asking how can the Lions beef up their defensive line to give Aiden Hutchinson some support and bolster that defense in order to make a big playoff run this year. And on top of that, how do they do it without breaking the bank or selling the farm? And so we're talking not giving up major draft picks, not going crazy with fake cap games, all that kind of stuff. And so, we're going into week 5, which kind of complicates things, okay? Because at this point in the season, you've got teams pretty set with their rosters. If they're in a position where they think they can make the playoffs, they're not likely to make a trade. And if they're falling out of the playoffs, they're either looking at it as, hey, we need this guy as a cornerstone for next year, or we're going to sell these resources and sort of like go into a rebuilding process. And so, you kind of got to keep that in mind. But when I look at it, I see a few different options. I think the first option is that you stand pat and you just have faith in the group that you have. You did see what was it last week? They had 5 sacks or whatever. The Lions defense is showing signs of life. And so the first option is you just think, hey, they're going to get better organically and you got to give them time. But I know that that's not what our viewer is looking for. The second option is that you go and kick the tires on every motherfucking free agent that is sitting out there and see if they are better than what you have in your locker room. And I'm gonna get into that. I'm gonna run through some of those names in just a minute. But that's something that your GM should be doing all the time anyhow for every position. And then the third option is that you go out and you make a mid-season trade, but you got to do it in a way that's strategic, where you're not giving away too many resources, but at the same time, you're having some kind of an impact that you're going to beat options one or options two. And so for the sake of arguments, let's just skip option one. We're not just going to stand pat. So option two, you're looking at some guys that are sitting out there as free agents waiting for somebody to call them. And I'm going to look first at the salary cap for the Lions, James. Depending on whether you're using over the cap or Spotrac, they're at 7.9 million to 8.7 million in space. And so if you're signing a free agent, that's what you got to work with, unless you restructure some deals and yada, 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 whatever. From there, I'm going to take a look at, let me find my source here. This is NFLTradeRumors.com. They have a list of the top 100 free agents available. And so I took that list, I looked at the defensive linemen, and I only included guys that are rated higher than the
What was that
Lions.
website again? NFL what?
NFL Trade Rumors. And you might want to just Google NFL Trade Rumors and see what their site is. I don't know if it's actually NFLTradeRumors.com, but so I pulled up that site, I took their top 100, and I scrubbed anybody that was rated lower than a Lions player according to lineups, because I like the lineups ratings. I love the PFF ratings, but I'm just sick of paying for them. And so when I look at the available free agents, you've got Melvin Ingram on the edge. You've got Carlos Dunlap on the edge. If you go interior, you got Akeem Hicks. You've got Ndamukong Suh. And then you've got like Linville Joseph. He's kind of sitting there at the defensive tackle spot. And you've also got some guys like Jason Pierre-Paul and Mario Addison at the edge. But the one guy they don't have listed that I think falls into number two that you got to make the call on anyhow and see if he's available is motherfucking motherfucking JJ Watt. So he was talking about going to Pittsburgh in the offseason to play with his brother because he wanted one more shot at being on a playoff team and he wanted to play with his brother. Okay, it didn't work out. And at the end of the day, he backed off of that because he didn't want to affect TJ Watt getting his contract extension. But JJ Watt, big name guy, a little bit long in the tooth, still has potential to play. He wants to be on a team that can make a playoff run. I like him for the Lions. He did have a brief stint at Central Michigan once upon a time ago. But that aside, he's got position flexibility. He can play defensive tackle. He can play defensive end. More importantly, he's a veteran leader, can provide some of that for Hutchinson, help groom him to become that. And I think he could also show other high caliber, big name free agents that Detroit is becoming a landing spot for talent. And so if you're going number two, I go JJ Watt as my first pick. If you can't get him because he's not interested, I think you look at a combination of guys. Maybe you go with Linville Joseph or Akeem Hicks at the defensive tackle spot and pair them with one of these defensive ends. It doesn't matter. Just bring them in, give the guys a little bit more competition, and see what happens. But the third option here is you're looking for a trade, and it's a little bit harder to do at this point in the season. Okay, I looked at lineups, I looked at comparable players to kind of like what Cleveland did last year with Zadarius Smith. And I've only got a handful of names. You've got DJ Reader in Cincinnati. I know they're struggling right now, but I got to believe they're going to get back on track and they're not going to sell a resource when they might be able to make a playoff push. Then you've got Indianapolis with Grover Stewart. It's tough with them too, because even though they've got a rookie quarterback and a lot of people thought this was going to just be a give me year, they're playing inspiring football, and so they might want to hang on to him. But if they don't, they might want to sell him and have some resources to add around Richardson. So you kind of keep him on the list. Then you got Kyle Williams out of Buffalo. Same thing. I don't see Buffalo trading a guy when you know they're squarely in the playoff picture. After that, you got Chase Young in Washington. He's a guy that they could absolutely move, and they have an abundance of talent on that defensive line. The question is, do you want to bring him in when he has never lived up to his potential in Washington? Sometimes a guy needs a change of scenery to get there, light that fire under him and whatever else. It's a risk I'd be willing to take, but you got to ask yourself those kind of questions. And then lastly, you got DJ Jones in Denver. They're struggling so much this year, even though he's kind of a cornerstone piece on that defense, I could see them making a move on him. And so, out of those kind of guys, I would say you try Grover Stewart. I think he's the best of the bunch. If you can't get him, you look at DJ Jones or maybe even Chase Young. But you don't trade anything big. I mean, we're talking at best fourth round or later, and maybe like some combination of swapping picks or whatnot. But the problem is, I don't think you're going to get a fourth round pick in a trade for Grover Stewart, or give up a fourth round pick rather, or for DJ Jones, unless they're really just giving away resources in Denver. Chase Young, you might be able to get that because you saw what the Lions did with Jeff Okudah, him going to Atlanta. They might be willing to do something for a later round pick there. It's just not working. But you got to be confident that it's going to come in and it's going to supersede what you've got going on with your existing players, because you don't want to taint that unless you're highly confident that it's going to be good for that team. And now the last thing I got here, James, and I know our viewers not asking this, but I do believe there's a fourth option, which is you go out and you make that blockbuster trade and you do spend some bigger resources in getting a guy that could be there not just for this year, but for the future and be a big part of that defense. There's not many options, in my opinion, that really are attractive, if you will, but I would look at Miami. I would look at Christian Wilkins. I think Miami has kind of like shown their hand a little bit by not extending him already, is that he potentially does not fit in that Vic Fangio defense, but he is young. Every year he's gotten better. And lineups right now has him rated at 85, which I think is low in my opinion. He could come in and you could pair him with Hutchinson for a long time. A strong interior guy, a strong outside guy, but you would have to give up a big pick for him and big money for him. And so those are kind of your options if I could like break it down without going too deep. And I know I probably already spoke quite a bit on it, but my opinion is you kick the tires on JJ Watt. If that doesn't work, you fucking work out all these available free agents. If you're not seeing anything there, then you go the trade route. But it's complicated. What are you thinking here, James?
So I like the theory of kicking the tires on JJ Watt. I personally think nothing needs to be done with
You're
the
going option
Detroit
number
Lions
one.
at this point. I would go option number one. So if you look at week one for the Lions, they struggled. Week two, they struggled. Week 3 and 4, they started getting better, and they're getting better. I again agree with you that this viewer is not looking for stand pat. So I have a few names besides JJ Watt that are sitting out there in free agency still. And I think any one of them we could get under the cap. The ones that there's two that haven't gotten much depth into, which is Carlos Dunlap and Matt Ioannidis.
I do like Carlos Dunlap.
But you also have Melvin Ingram still sitting out there.
Yep. Veteran leader.
And I'm also throwing on this list, I'm throwing out Gregory and I'm throwing out Chandler Jones because I don't know
Yeah,
what's up with
yeah. You don't want to bring a
those two.
bad seed into the locker room. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
we're just going to disqualify them. I'm with you on that.
yeah. So Melvin Ingram, he has 57 sacks over his 11-year career, but there's some time he missed in there, a good portion of time that he missed in there. In 11 years, he's played in a full season, 1, 2, 3, 4 of those years. And in those 4 years, he had 10 and a half, 8, 10 and a half, and 7 sacks.
Yeah, and I think at this stage of his career, if you bring him in, it's just as a rotational guy anyhow, right?
Yeah, and you're looking at a exactly. You're looking at a rotational guy. Okay. Next up, again, you're looking at a rotational guy, Hakeem Hicks.
Yeah. He's not going to play many downs, but he will stuff the middle of that defensive line when he's
Exactly.
playing.
Exactly. 100%. Those were the four that I came up with. I did kind of throw out there. I looked, well, what about defensive front? I think where the lines may need help and is to be determined is at linebacker.
Yeah.
It's to be determined on some of those plays, but one. So I looked at linebackers available, and I found one that could be, depending on how much. Yeah, I just thought linebackers today, so they're just a few minutes ago. So let me look up
Sure.
something on him. And again, it's linebacker help you're looking for. It's not the guy to be an every down linebacker. You have and
Yeah, you're
the one
trying to
player
beef up the defense.
right. One player I came up with was Anthony Barr,
Okay.
who he was most recently with the Cowboys. And again, it was for depth.
But
Um,
very familiar with the Vikings and the NFC North in general.
right. Exactly. He played with the Vikings for what, 8 years, and then he was with the Cowboys. And the reason why his tenure with the Cowboys was short was because of the fact that he had a hamstring injury. But so I mean, he had missed 3 games and most of a fourth game with the Cowboys. Most recently last year, he had 58 combined tackles, 35 solo tackles, 23 assists, and he had 1 sack. He has, in 108 games, he averages about 112 games. So call it about 30 solo tackles a season.
Okay.
No, yeah,
Yeah, that
30
seems
solo
low.
tackles. Math's not right. Hold on.
Yeah, for a linebacker, it's
I'm
got to
sorry.
be higher than that.
30, but let me rephrase that. 30 solo tackles a game. No,
No,
that
right.
is right.
That'd be way high.
I was right the first time. That does seem low. It's 5 interceptions, 8 forced fumbles, 9 fumble recoveries in his career. It's decent. Most of it happened in the early, but I think it's just a guy. Again, he's a veteran. He knows the North.
Oh yeah.
He knows the Vikings. He knows the Packers, and just it's more. I'm looking more at a leadership, not necessarily like to be the team leader, but the veteran experience that can help the younger guys develop.
Yeah,
Not
you
looking
got
for
Jack
somebody that's going to
Campbell,
make a
you got
fix.
Rodrigo, like
Yeah,
give them some help, man.
yeah. You're not looking at somebody that's gonna fix. You're looking at somebody that's going to be depth and help these younger guys along. Like Hakeem Hicks, Melvin Ingram could help the younger guys in the defensive line, like Hutch, and Barr could help the linebackers just on being a pro and what they're looking for, and especially with the knowledge of the NFC North. I think Barr could be a good fit. And these are all guys at this point in their career. They're not going to get that exorbitant salary that's going to
No.
eat up all that cap space that we have. Plus, the cap is fake. Like we could rework Goff's
Yeah,
contract
anybody's deal if we
and
want.
fuck us
Yeah.
over 4 years
Yeah.
from now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Turn
15
Hutchinson's
void
deal into
seasons.
100% signing. Turn Hutchinson's deal into 100% signing bonus and extend 6 years. Whatever. Like the cap's fake and it doesn't matter.
All right. So yeah, those are all the options. Kind of pick your poison. If I'm GM, I'm calling JJ Watt first, and I'm going to see if I can get him because
Yeah.
you don't have to give up any picks to do that. And if I can't get him, I'm kicking the tires on those free agents before I go and make a trade. But I'm going to be cautious about integrating them into the team because, like you're saying, option one is really not that bad when the team looks like they might be making traction on that
Mm-hmm.
defensive line. Although I will say weeks 1 and 2, they did play very good defensive lines. And so it's like, how much of that is
Offensive line.
just, the disparity of talent. And so, but yeah, so those are the options. And,
And I really hate the Ndamukong Suh option. We talked about it. Would you kick the tires on him? That like a number of weeks ago, and I don't think adding him is that player that's going to put them over the top. So it's not
no.
worthwhile because he could damage that locker room a lot. And I don't want Ndamukong Suh teaching the young guys how to play, how to manage
Yeah, how to
the
turn
football
on and
career.
off your motor when you feel like it.
Yeah, and how to have good years
Stomp on a
only.
freaking Packer player if you feel like
Yeah,
it.
or have good years when it's a contract year, so you get
Yeah.
paid the next season.
No, it's tough. I like Sue as a player. I don't like him in terms of his inconsistency and all the things that you're saying, but he did have, immense potential. And I still
Mhm.
think at this stage of his career, he can have value, but it's not the right fit for our team. So,
Yeah, I never really liked Sue as a player. I thought he had potential, but I thought he was way overdrafted and he was way overrated coming out of college.
I gotcha. All right. Well, hey, that's our question of the week. And yeah, for anybody who's still watching and whatnot, give us some feedback if you liked it or didn't, or if you have some more questions or whatever the case may be. But um, yeah, in terms of the show for tonight, James, that's pretty much all I've got, man. What else you want to cover, man? Are you good?
I'm good. I think we've been going for 2 hours, and I think I hit everything that I have in my head for this week for NFL.
All right. Well, hey, anybody who's watching, we hope you like the show. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Hit us up with a like, some comments, play name that stadium, all that jazz. James, like always, man, it was fun. I'll catch you later, buddy.
All right, sounds good.
Gridiron Grinder. Hut hut hike.